accounts with Four Guys with Quarters, and we should be live on all platforms right now. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. But we are here with the amazing, well-known legend, the Fable Redhead, aka Lauran Carter, and she is awesome. And thank you for joining us today.
Dude, you are too kind, and you're not only joined by me, you may have just heard you're also joined by my terrier Baxter, who, as soon as you started speaking, decided to start barking. So let's hope that doesn't happen too much during the next hour. But hi, good to see you, good to be live, and thank you for having me.
Yep. Yeah, no problem. Thank you for joining us. It's a pleasure. I know that we spoke. I think the last time we actually spoke to you on camera was back in 2016. I want to say.
I was trying to remember this. So yeah, I think it must have been quite soon after the sad demise of Lionhead, and probably at the time I would have been at Xbox International, Xbox HQ in Reading in England. So yeah, yes, must have been 2016.
You sent me the fidget spinner.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, my daughter still has that.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. You gotta love that Xbox merch. They think of everything. I love it.
They do, yeah. I mean, game companies in general. But we also have, as we call him on the show now, the Belgian sensation across the nation, because he has the world's biggest candy ball, and that's no lie. His name is Flan.
Whoa.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Klaus. It's always great to do these interviews, and with my work going on, it's sometimes hard to get into these, but I'm very glad to be here. And welcome, Albion Girl, Lauran Carter.
Thank you so much.
I'm very excited.
Let's hope I live up to it.
Oh, you do. People still go back to that original interview that you did with us, so you definitely.
Oh, really? Yeah. Wow, that's cool. Hey, I must have said something useful. Look at that. Okay, I'm pleased.
And we have PK on the panel as well. What's going on, PK?
Hey, thanks for having me. How you doing? Welcome, Lauran. Nice to meet you.
Thank you so much.
Glad to be here with my brothers, and definitely like to have a conversation and pick your brain to see how everything's going in 2021.
Sounds good. Sounds good. There's a lot to talk about. I'm not going to lie. It's been busy.
So, Lauran, for all our new guests and people in the chat that, may have only seen bits and pieces of the original interview, what is your history in the game industry, and where have you been?
I mean, the terrifying thing to kind of comprehend now is that I've been doing this for well over a decade, at least working in games, not necessarily communications. But I started out, it was really pure chance. A friend of mine happened to work at EA. Through him, I learnt that EA was part of a big gaming hub in Guildford. We lived just outside of Guildford in the UK. And just through hearing him, like, I'll be completely honest with you, I was someone that hated my work. I just worked admin jobs. I didn't enjoy it. It didn't engage my brain. I wasn't any good at it. Therefore, just couldn't stand it. Felt like an outcast, all of that stuff. We later learned that's got a lot to do with ADHD, but that's about 15, 20 years later. So yeah, we got some time. 15 years, I suppose. So I was honestly just talking to a friend of mine and hearing him talk about all of these awesome stuff that, they got to do at EA, and all of the events that they got to go on, and the games that he got to be involved in. And through there, just kept putting my CV in at EA, and I was very lucky in the sense that they work on a studio fit basis, which a lot of studios do in the UK. I'm not sure if it's the same for the States. So they liked me. Therefore, they kept putting me through the interview process for different roles until they found something that worked for me. So I ended up joining EA's online production team in 2008. 2009 maybe, and that was my first kind of jump into games. But EA being the way, well, games, to be honest, companies being the way that they can be, the online publishing team that had been established, to kind of kick everything off, it was then kind of worked out that maybe it was a bit too soon, and maybe we should scramble back on this a little bit. So I was only at EA for about 6 months, and then just through learning that Guildford was a hub. From there, I went on to Codemasters, and at this point, I'm an administrator. I'm doing office manager, HR, finance roles. I'm helping out with running a studio or PA, when I was at EA, I was actually testing games like Tiger Woods Online, knowing nothing about golf, knowing nothing about testing games, and finding myself kind of in this space trying to learn all of this stuff, which I would say is actually baptism of fire, works out quite well for me. But yeah, so then on to Codemasters. After Cody's was shut down, I moved on to Media Molecule for a short time. And then after that, my career at Lionhead started, and that's really the most important part for me. You know, everything else was just learning the ground and understanding the industry and being able to have a rapport with people, which, you know, on a technical level, which is what I learned through having to minute meetings and be in all of these high level conversations about, you know, how the back end was going to work, or how many servers we'd need, or whatever it may be, whatever element of coding or design or art or whatever. I just learned as much as I could. Now the dog's got a squeaky toy. If he's not barking, he's squeaking a toy. Come here, good boy. Look, I'll swap you. How about this? Here, sorry everyone. This is real-time dog parenting. Sometimes you've got to swap out a squeaky toy for a non-squeaky toy. He's not happy about it, however. So then I went to Lionhead, and again I was brought in as an administrator, and I was there for a couple of years, loved it, loved everyone there, really got on with the teams, really enjoyed the work they were doing and the games they were making, and the community. The dog's going crazy. The community surrounding all of that as well. He's very upset that he can't have a squeaky toy back. That when Fable Legends started development, I realized that the forums and all of the social channels that were either completely dormant or had been shut down would, you know, for an online game with a beta, we're going to need someone to be manning this stuff again. So I literally put a presentation together as the administrator of the team, and went to my boss, the exec producer, and said, I want to be a community manager now. And he went, okay. And the dogs managed to get the toy back, never mind. So he, in the end, agreed. You know, my proposal was reasonable, and I found ways that I could make it work and run it alongside the work I was doing already. So he agreed that I could do 50% of my time community management and 50% looking after the team and doing my admin work. And it was about a year, maybe a little bit less, before I was moved into community full time. And that's been everything I've been doing since, really. I mean, obviously Lionhead is no longer with us since then. I've had a short stint where it was about a year, I suppose, at Xbox HQ. I then went to 2 Point Hospital and rejoined with 2 Point Studios, I should say, through Sega, and rejoined a lot of my Lionhead colleagues there, and got to launch 2 Point, which was fantastic, as, you know, theme, spiritual successor, but theme was my absolute favorite thing as a kid, alongside Pokemon, so that was great. And now I am head of comms and running a communications department at a production house, I suppose is the best term, called Liquid Crimson. Yeah, so it's been a wiggly old journey to get us here, but here we are, over a decade later.
That is awesome. That is a career to be proud of. And that's okay. I mean, I have a dog too. I have a Jack Russell, and he gets kind of crazy.
They're just the worst, aren't they? Terriers. My God, what was I thinking?
Yes, I know.
I mean, wonderful for absolutely everything other than wanting to be in a call and needing silence.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, he's okay.
And, you know, I remember too as well that you actually did a onstage presentation for a little bit too. I mean, that was pretty exciting, right? You did that at E3?
This was probably, I mean, to date, it's one of the highlights of my career, and I imagine it will remain so. I was, because I am fairly loud, put myself in situations and are happy to be, you know, on stages in spotlights and making a bit of a fool of myself. I was chosen, I suppose, to be part of the team of 5 that were on stage at E3 to announce Fable Legends at the Xbox media briefing in 2014. It was just incredible. It was absolutely incredible, and it wasn't just, you know, the experience and actually going through, you know, learning how Xbox go about putting these kind of events on and seeing all of the buzz. You know, this was my first E3, and I'm getting there early and seeing the whole thing build up. And in the interim, I met Macklemore, and we're sneaking into Phil Spencer's dressing room to leave him awesome T-shirts that we've been given by insert coin. And then just getting to see, you know, all of the games. It was the year of Cuphead being announced. It was the year of Sunset. what else was out that year? Ori. It was all of these games that we got to see, you know, even though it was only 30 seconds of footage and a few lines of dialogue, but we got to see them 3 days before everyone else. You know, it was just so exciting. And by the end, you ended up kind of knowing what all of the other presenters were going to be saying about their games. So it really created a bit of a community as well. It was lush. Yeah, and then from there, because, you know, that I suppose the best way to put it is that in the games industry, personalities tend to be quite quiet, or they can be. I think it's changing as the industry gets bigger. But because I'm quite a loud personality, and the people that I was on stage with are fantastic, talented, incredible humans who felt just a little bit out of place being on stage in front of 3 million people or whatever it worked out to be. I stood out a bit because I was comfortable. I felt okay. I did a big old salute to the camera, and I played my, you know, I really learnt, even though we were, you know, obviously it was pre-recorded, but I learnt, so I made sure that I was really looking like I was playing this game and I was into it and I was reacting to it. And when we came off stage, I was trending on Twitter. It was the strangest thing I've ever witnessed in my life, but hashtag Fable Redhead was trending on Twitter. So yeah, that was my crowning moment. That's how I got my 4,000 followers that I've retained to this day. I'll have you know.
That is awesome.
Thank you.
Matt has a question in the chat. He asks, would you say that you jump around jobs to learn more and try new things?
It's a bit of that, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a tricky old thing for me because I am someone, again, because of my aforementioned ADHD, which, you know, is only kind of something I'm getting to grips with over the last year or so. I now recognize that my moving around in work was either that I'd lost that real raw motivation, that real raw passion for what I was doing, which can be for, you know, a multitude of reasons, and not necessarily because of, you know, negative interaction. It can just be that, you know, the wheels fall off for you, you know, and when you're an individual that really needs passion to do their best work. I found that, yeah, sometimes, you know, the thing with games is that sometimes studios get shut down. I mean, that's not even all of the places that I've worked at. There've been little places in between where I've just been brought on short term to help with communications, or there's been, thankfully, with a studio that I'm now working with again called Glowmade. But Glowmade were a very, very small startup that I went to after Lionhead. And within a few months of me being there, they lost funding, and I was commuting about 40 miles. I don't know what that is in kilometers. I'm sorry, guys. Like thousands of kilometers at least. Probably not. Commuting quite a way to get to this role. And although they were all, again, ex-Lionhead people that I absolutely adored and still adore to this day, the question was kind of asked. In fact, this is another bit of my job that I haven't even spoken about. The question was kind of asked, we will get funding again. It's, you know, it's gonna come soon. We're already sorting it out. In the meantime, would you guys be happy to work just as we are whilst we get everything kicked off, and we'll get other kind of bits and pieces of work so that you know, so that you're getting paid and money is coming in, and we'll do some contracts, etc., etc. So I did a month the day that this was announced that they'd lost funding and we're going to be contracting in order to kick it all off again. Was the day that No Man's Sky launched, and Hello Games happened to be next door to Glowmade, and again, ex-Lionhead folk. So on that day, I came into work to find out that I was the community manager for Hello Games for a month from the day of launch. So I was heavily involved in dealing with a lot of the Steam issues. Obviously, it was a baptism of fire, especially for someone that had worked entirely on console until that point. And then I'm faced with not only a Steam forum, but a Steam forum that wants me dead. And everyone I'm sitting next to, and probably everyone in a 20-mile vicinity. So yeah, it was, and that was sitting next to absolute legend Simon Carter, and having him give real-time bug fixes to problems that we were finding in the Steam chats and on the Steam forums. So yeah, I did that for a month, and then unfortunately there wasn't the funding available for me to carry on, and because it was, you know, long distance, etc., that's when I took some time out from there as well. So there's so many things that happen in the interim. You know, sometimes with games, with all, you know, we all have excellent intentions, we all have these amazing ideas, we all have these fantastic, you know, talents within our teams that we know can do amazing things, but it's not always that easy to convince you know, a backer, a funder, the wider world, social media communities, whoever it may be, that's actually what's happening until, you know, to whatever that kind of breaking point is for whichever subject you're dealing with. So yeah, there's lots of reasons, but I do also find, I suppose, another thing that makes me a little bit different within my field is that I still class myself as a community manager, and traditionally community managers are entry-level marketeers, and they learn their trade through community management. But community management, it was such an important part of, you know, my career, gave me my career, gave me a reason and a purpose to get out of bed every morning and feel like I actually wanted to go and be a part of something. And what I've learned from that is that actually breaking down barriers between game studios and their audiences, and replace game studios with musicians, with brands, with products, with anything, but especially with games. If you break down that barrier and make everyone feel like they're on the same level and everyone's as important as everyone else, and yes, the community want to hear from the devs, but the devs should be just as invested in what the community are doing, and keeping that aspect of give and take and kind of lower level. Yeah, I guess marketing with feeling as opposed to kind of big budget marketing is more my kind of space. So again, that means that I tend to get brought into companies as a community manager, even though, you know, my role now for Liquid Crimson at least is certainly more marketing focused. So yeah, there's another reason why I've been at lots of places. There's just so much to do.
I mean, that does sound kind of awesome. Go ahead, PK.
I have a question for you. So with all the time that you've been through, and maybe it's a two-part question. One is, I wanted to know how impactful do you, from your point of view, do you think the community is the gamers, and how they feel, and two, how do you filter through people, because you know you always have people that may just have complaints versus people who have legitimate concerns or even suggestions and things like that. How do you compact all that and manage through that?
I guess in the first instance, so your first point, kind of how now the dog started ticking away and I started thinking about that. So your first point, how do you kind of deal with the community's feelings versus the art form that you're dealing with? And I guess it's a really fine line. It's a really, really fine line, because we're definitely starting to see trends. Take the Sonic movie, take a few other things in games that we've seen, where the community is pushing back on elements and studios are yielding to whatever that may be. After, you know, a lot of complaint or however, I'm sorry, I do just have to get this air freshener out of the dog's mouth, and then I'm going to put him in the kitchen, and then I'm going to come right back. Hang on.
Okay, no worries.
Flemish, she just gave me an idea what to do with you sometimes.
What?
Nothing. We're going to get some chocolate.
Anyways, nothing happened. So yeah, I guess that there is a fine line, because at the end of the day, you're dealing with an art form. So yes, people's feelings are important. And as far as feeding into the development of a game, when you're dealing with betas, when you're dealing with any kind of element where you want feedback, you want to hear from your community, then yes, feelings, ideas, dreams, you know, I don't know, out-of-body experiences they had that were in any way connected, you want to hear all of it. But when it comes to someone's kind of a negative opinion about something you're doing, there has to be that fine, you know, a kind of drawing of a line in the art form. That doesn't mean that art forms can be or should be racist, misogynistic, homophobic, or any other awful thing. But there should be the space for people to express whatever, you know, as a developer, whatever, especially as an indie dev, whatever they want to express. So it's a fine line, and I would rather take the stance of, as long as the art form isn't offensive, then the art form should stand, you know, as the example that the game is putting forth. But you know, when you're looking for interaction, community is the most useful place to get feedback on a game, because people that are coming to a beta are already super engaged in what you're doing. They want to know about it. They want to know that their opinion matters, that their feedback is being taken on board, and they want to log in a week later and see that it's happened, you know? So that's a different kind of situation altogether. And then remind me, PK, what was your second point?
How impactful, but I think you kind of answered it, but I mean, you can expand on it if you like, how impactful community feedback is.
Yeah, that's the thing. I guess it's a spectrum. It entirely depends on what you're dealing with and the severity of the action or you know, whatever caused the feedback. But yeah, I'd say communities are the most important thing, and I don't mean huge communities where you've got hundreds and thousands of people who are all kind of shouting and not really getting a point across. The smaller, engaged communities are the most valuable spaces, and I'm sure every single one of us is a part of one of those smaller communities where you don't necessarily know everyone. You may have been a part of it kind of being built a bit yourself, and that is not only valuable to whoever's involved in it, you know, the individuals that are coming to interact, but the developers having a chance to see that, you know, kind of interaction and see that sparking of excitement surrounding something that they're creating is another way to, you know, development can be tough. So we need that to keep us going as well, you know, to keep us kind of excited and on track.
It sounds like you guys draw on that energy to kind of propel you forward.
Sometimes, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, you've got to remember that there's a wealth of difference between, you know, a studio like Lionhead getting all of the backing of an Xbox marketing team, getting all of the advertising, getting all of the social teams, getting, you know, you've got territories and every single one of them are going to tweet about your game 20 times over the next 3 weeks or whatever. That's awesome, you know, and seeing that happening when you're a part of that and seeing loads of people talking about that is absolutely fantastic. But curating something, finding a community and actually building it and starting to almost give it the tools to keep itself going. In that instance, the joy and the excitement and the inspiration that you're getting from it as a developer can be entirely different. They can be so small, they can be a bit of fan art, they can be that someone's coined a phrase that they heard in the game, or, you know, whatever it may be. And that's the kind of stuff that I like to use for social media and for, you know, getting the recognition that the devs and the community are interacting with each other. Yeah.
Do you, I'm thinking, like, do you have a special one that you have, like, that you think of, that you...
As far as building?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, it's 2 Point. It's 2 Point, without a doubt. Yeah. And I know that I think... I'm not sure. I don't think they'll be watching, so I think I'm free to talk about them. But no, I was brought on to 2 Point it was pretty, you know, the launch was speeding up. I think we were about 6 months, away from launch, and hadn't even announced. You know, I came in for announce was January. No one even knew that it was happening up until that point. Sega had teased, but no one knew that it was happening. And we were launching in August. So I had to build a community, and, you know, once we announced, we had a few thousand followers maybe, but there was really not much going on. And in addition to that, there was no game, nothing to share, nothing to show anyone. We're still getting, you know, scrambling to get everything together ready for launch and get it all looking beautiful and wonderful and bug fixed and ready to go. So I started noticing a couple of people in the community who were responding to everything that I was putting out and responding positively and being super engaged and interested. And then once we started releasing small trailers and little teasers and stuff like that, two in particular, one, Joe R247. I suggest you find both of these streamers and creators, I should say, and get on it. Seriously, they're wonderful. Joe R247, and then another was Bloober, who is a creator. Bloober was quite literally taking 3 seconds of gameplay that she was finding in trailers and slowing them right down to, you know, frame by frame, and explaining to her community in hour-long videos what all of these tiny little bits of information could mean in 2 Point Hospital, and okay, there's a coffee machine, so let's assume that the doctors are going to be impacted by caffeine. Okay, so we've got this, let's think about that. There's this thing going on, what's that over there? Can't work out what this is. She dissected every single part of the content that we put out, and as soon as I had a chance to get her involved, she was involved, and she's still a huge part of that community, as is Jo. She's still the foremost kind of authority. She runs the wiki, and to this day, I refer to her as Queen Bee. So I view her and Jo as the real kind of pillars of that community, and building that up with them, and seeing the rest of the community being excited about interacting with Jo and Bee, because we'd kind of gone, look at these guys. It really kind of helped fuel it, and I loved it, absolutely loved it. And streaming regularly with 2 Point really helped build out that community as well.
Yeah, I gotta say that you've been part of many awesome communities. Like, wherever you've been, the community has been awesome, the reception has been awesome, and the way that you talk to people and interact, all of that has always been creative.
Go on. Yeah, that was PK's other point. I knew there was something else. So there is absolutely a way to engage with people, and I know that this is probably not the way that the world is going, and I may be very much alone in the way that I'm doing this, but I have always had the kind of motivation that internet anonymity is one of the worst things that we've ever been given, that society, humanity, the world has ever been given. And your average person who has created an account to go and be rude to every Xbox or PlayStation account or whatever else, they're hurting, man. There's something going on there. There's something going on. They're unhappy. They're sad. They're reflecting themselves out into the world or whatever it may be. And I've always been kind, even if they've been saying that they want the studio to burn down and us all to lose our jobs. And even if they've been saying that our game is a piece of expletive, and whatever else may or may not, all sorts of awful things. But I'd ask them why. Hey, dude, sorry you feel that way. Could you give me a bit more info so I can take it back to the devs? Something tangible that could actually help our direction going forward, and actually giving someone just that tiny, tiny, tiny bit of attention, tiny, tiny, tiny bit of interaction, tiny, tiny bit of, hey, what's up? What's going on here? The next message, 99% of the time, would be, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be so rude. Thanks so much. It's literally right there. It's bubbling under the surface. And we're all so quick to get angry and say, okay, fuck you. Oh, gosh, I did it. I was expletive.
That's okay.
It's only 2:00 in the afternoon for you.
Right.
The BBC would be so unimpressed with me.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere in the world.
Well, it's 7:30 here, and I'm supping a hot chocolate, so that's confusing, isn't it?
For me, even 8:30, so.
So even better there. But yeah, I really, really do subscribe to just treat everyone how you want to be treated, even if they are shoving rudeness in your face, because they don't realize that there's a real person. Maybe community management's changed now, and we understand that. We understand that it's more often than not one person sitting at the end of that computer answering that stuff. But back then, maybe it was just maybe it's, the team will share it, or maybe it's maybe the cleaner does it, or whatever. It wasn't really recognized as a proper thing. So yeah, people could be quite rude, and I just think it's best to have a little chat, see how it goes.
I have another question. Do you think, leading off of that, if we had more intimate connections with the developers and the teams, like if you guys, I won't say you, but just in general, had more Twitch streams or even Discord servers where you can interact with, just had an actual open, direct communication with the devs and their teams, and feel more of an intimate connection with them, and it wouldn't feel so stifled, like, because I know I'm not saying everyone, but I do know that some users or gamers may not feel like their voice is being heard, or they see.
Well, I suppose
that evolving.
I get what you're saying. Like, I guess the distinction is that there's a world of difference between your Xboxes, your PlayStations, your Nintendos, and the hundreds of thousands of indie developers that we have. And those indie developers will have those conversations. They're there, they've got Discords, they've got, you know, in some cases forums, they've got spaces where you can go and interact with them. If it's, you know, it's something I say to all of the devs that I work with, always respond to people if they're asking you questions on Twitter, even if you don't know who they are, even if they have shown up out of the blue, always use hashtags so that your information is getting seeded with, you know, in a space where other people can see it, and respond and engage with that stuff. But when you're dealing with, you know, the big three, the big developers, the AAA studios and all of that kind of stuff, I can understand why it would feel stifled to a gamer, to the community, because it's a terrifying place for a developer to be in. It is terrifying. I don't know if you guys have noticed that if you follow any big studios, you may notice that it will be the same 5, 6, 7 faces who do the videos and speak about development, because they're the only ones that feel comfortable enough to do it. There aren't very many of us. So every other developer, even opening Twitter, you know, you announce a game, you've been working on that game for years, you know, a couple of years at least. The game's at the point of announce. The world knows about it. Your name was involved. People are asking you questions on Twitter. A lot of developers will just go, I don't know what I can say. I don't know what's NDA'd. I don't know what's safe. I don't know how to word. No, we're not doing that. I don't know how to engage, you know, a positive spin on a negative. You know, if someone's asking for something that's not going to exist in the game, but they're really hoping that it does, and they're asking just, you know, a developer on you know, part of the coding team, he's not going to know how to engage with that. So there's a real kind of difference. I mean, he wouldn't within that environment, but if you put him in an indie environment where he's free to chat with his studio and everyone knows what's going on, and there's no big scary kind of overarching you know, NDA, all of that kind of stuff going on that's terrifying, you can have a bit more of an open. And of course there are still aspects of the development that will be completely behind closed doors and silent and locked away, but yeah, again, there's a distinction between the kind of the communities you can have dependent on the studio. But I can completely understand why it would feel that way, because it's difficult, right? And it's not only that you guys may feel that you're not getting the interaction that you want, but you may be one of 50 people who are asking the same thing, and the community manager might just be thinking, I've answered this so many times, but for you guys, you're all in different time zones, you may have missed it being answered at whatever point. So there's also a fatigue that could set in. If I had a quid for every time someone posted on social media, and we had over 1 million followers for the Fable group, if I had a quid for every time someone said make Fable 4, I would no longer be working. I wouldn't be here, guys. I'd just be hanging out with you guys and playing video games every now and then. But yeah, so there's, you know, there's parts where you get to the point where it's like, I've literally said, if someone's just saying fucking make Fable 4, fucker, it's like, okay, how many times can I say, we'd love to, but right now we're doing this? You get to a kind of fatigue with it as well, which could also probably help the audience feel a little bit out of sorts, especially if they're new to the community.
I wanted to say, you know, there's one thing I really did want to say, and is that I really missed Lionhead. I just have to say that. It's one of my most favorite studios of all time, and I really think that Fable Legends was... Yes, that is so awesome.
This one.
Oh,
Oh,
There's another one.
Man, that
oh,
is
Journey. Wow.
The little jack of blades up there. There we go. Yeah, I keep it all around. It's all around me all of the time. A lot of it got boxed away because it was making me sad. But yeah, there's some of it bits around here and there.
I honestly think that in the time that we're in right now with free-to-play games, if Fable Legends would have came out right now, free-to-play, and the characters would have been DLC content, it would have taken off. It would have taken off.
It's heartbreaking, isn't it?
It is.
It's
and
heartbreaking.
You know, I messaged that a couple times to Xbox and to Phil, and I'm like, you know, if the code's anywhere out there, now is the perfect time to get back into it and bring the core of Lionhead back together.
Dude,
you know?
I actually had to remove the beta from my Xbox because I kept it on there just so that I could hear the music. Because nothing else, there's no server, there's nothing. It's just a holding screen. But I think I downloaded something that meant I had to let something go, and I was just like, look, you're literally going to this place to feel sad. Like, why are you doing this to yourself? Get rid of it. But yeah, I absolutely, I feel exactly the same. I think it was ahead of its time in some aspects, but also a bit late in others. We were kind of just behind that trend, but just ahead of this one that's happening now. yeah, it was heartbreaking. It was a AAA free-to-play game. It was stunningly beautiful.
For the people that actually don't know, and I'm maybe one of them, I don't know the entire story, but what's actually the story that got cancelled?
Well, I think it was just that ultimately, the story is the story of game development, which is trial and error. You know, it's fail quickly, fail often. It's what we live by, and it's what we try to do. And with Fable Legends, it was just a case of course, no one knows Fable better than Lionhead, although, of course, I wish Playground the very best of luck with everything that they're doing, and I'm sure they're going to do a hell of a job with it. But yeah, we had all of that knowledge. Yeah, we built that world. Yeah, we knew what every bit of bark looked like in that, you know, when you're walking through that bit of whatever, you know, wherever you may be, and all of the dialogue and all of that stuff. But what we didn't know was free to play. What we didn't know was multiplayer. What we didn't know was asymmetric multiplayer. There were just so many aspects to it that were like, oh, okay, so we're gonna have to try. Okay, now we go. Okay, so we just it was very much a process of just running into a lot of error, and of course, you know, the age-old saying goes, time is money, and you can't make something indefinitely. That's not, games have to come out, you know. And there was probably a point, you know, yes, we were a little bit too ambitious, I think, in hindsight. No, I don't think we needed to launch with 12 levels. We probably could have scaled that right back. But we ran at it with everything that we had, but there was still the peak of the mountain to go, and the hourglass was done. I think is the best way to.
And you guys were on the cusp of what studios do nowadays, right? You guys, at the time, Lionhead was a company that always wanted to finish their games before they released them, and released it with quality. Whereas today, we see that development is getting so big that it's almost impossible to release a game completely, because there's always more than one day one patch. There's always additions that come later that make the game, you know, more of a full experience. And we've seen that with great games, like Sea of Thieves, No Man's Sky is another example. And I just think that I just wish Xbox would have gave it the chance at the time, because all these studios today do that. They have a plan, they have a roadmap, and they get as much done as possible within the time frame allowed. That they release it, even sometimes prematurely, and then they fix it as they go. And I think that, you know, I'm gonna miss it forever. I'm gonna miss it forever.
It's an incredibly sad story, and another reason why I think I'm learning that I prefer some of the, not necessarily not AAA, but certainly working with smaller studios, is I've completely lost my train of thought. Have I mentioned it's been a really long day? Hang on. Is that... No, it's gone.
That's okay.
But the positive thing is, what's good about the whole thing is, you know, desperately sad losing Lionhead. It was a real home for so many people. I don't just mean developers. I mean players. I mean people that went to Fable and felt, you know, that they belonged there and they were treated how they wanted to be treated, and that it was, you know, a safe space, for want of a better term. But the loss of Lionhead gave us essentially 2 Point studios, although 2 Point did already exist. Lionhead went down. They were nowhere near ready to employ people, but they knew the talent that was on that team, so they just hired them. Get them in. We're not ready. Get them in. We need them. Don't let them go anywhere else. You know. So we got that. Glowmade scooped up some more talent, and they're up and running again. You've got people that would have, you know, gone to all of the various studios in Guildford, whether that be EA or Hello Games or Media Molecule or all of those spaces. But then you've got a lot of studios that popped up because of it. There is Pixel Count, who make Kinseed, and that's kind of a Fable-inspired game by ex-Fable devs.
I love that game. Like, all the pictures I see, it's just
so cute.
It is.
Yeah, really, really cute. It's almost like Stardew Fable. Like, it's just adorable. And also, you know, my kind of story, I feel like now is the point that I was meant to get to, which is I've been working in all these studios for all of this time, and I've met all of these people, I've learned all of these things, and I've worked on some really, you know, I'm extremely lucky to have worked on some really, really big titles and some really big launches, and just from driving 18 miles up the road and learning that there was this whole thing kicking off in Guildford that I didn't even realize. No one at school told me I could just drive to Guildford and go and work in games. I would have just done that. But I very much feel that my purpose has been to meet all of these people, to create all of these connections, to get to a point where I have all of the knowledge, as I like to call it, as far as Xbox social media and marketing training. I have classical training, okay? I learnt from Xbox, and Xbox are the best at social marketing, at the best at kind of reactive marketing and knowing how to deal with communities when there are awful things happening, when there are great things happening, how to jump on things, how to trend, all of that kind of stuff. I can now bring all of that knowledge and those connections through my work with Liquid Crimson to the Guildford community. And we very much, although we do have, a lot of work that happens outside of Guildford, our heart and souls are in Guildford. And we now work at connecting those studios, helping them find people for whatever, purposes they may have within their studios. If there are ways that we can connect people up and make that work. We host, Liquid Crimson itself, when we're allowed out of our houses, which hasn't been for about a year now. Liquid Crimson host the Guildford Game Awards. We should start with the Guildford Games drinks that they do every few months, where all developers are welcomed in Guildford to come and join us at the pub, and we have pizza and we have beers and we have a chat, and everyone, like I was saying, the NDA thing is so scary that we're actually missing out on valuable knowledge sharing because we're so terrified of what knowledge we are sharing. But as long as you remove all of the details and just talk about a process, everyone should be talking about a process. We're working with cutting edge technology that can change like that. We should all be discussing these things. So we've really made, Liquid Crimson, we've made that part of our priority to continue to feed. And along that vein, we've also been running the Guildford Games Festival Awards for the last couple of years. Last year was real life. This year was more digital. I say more entirely. But within that, 9 hours of interviews with Guildford game developers went out, where we just contacted all of the people that we know and have worked with and said, hey, we want to pick your brains about, whatever. I can send you links if you guys want to see it. There's some really cool stuff in there. And we're talking about people, I got to go to EA and interview the top dogs, like the top dogs at EA, Matt Webster and Pete Lake, and make them laugh. I was making them laugh. I was so happy. And then, loads of other amazing EA developers. And then I got to go to Supermassive and interview all of those guys. All of the indie studios that I've spoken about, Glowmade, Salix Games, just an absolute plethora of amazing developers. And we can now draw them all together in one space and say, hey guys, let's talk about this. Like, let's discuss what we do, and let's show everyone that Guildford is really such an important place for the games development as a whole, and that your average person walking down Guildford High Street probably doesn't realize that people around the world know the name of their town, whether it be for Need for Speed or for Little Big Planet or for, No Man's Sky or all those horrible things that Supermassive are up to, whatever those horrible, scary, creepy things they're doing there. But yeah, it's, we want to kind of be the platform that can show the world how amazing these devs are. So that's where it leads. It's sad. We all miss Lionhead, but we keep Lionhead alive because every time I do an interview, I talk about it.
Do you? That's
6
awesome.
years later. I think it'll be 5 years next week. 5 years next week that we lost Lionhead. Yeah. Or that we got the news. Yeah.
So I do have a couple questions for you on that. One is, I did see you when I can't say the name of the town that you always say. Guildford, is that it?
Guildford, yeah.
Guildford, okay.
Guildford, if you want to pronounce it with the proper Queen's English, but no one does.
Okay, because I always think of Gilshire for some reason.
Oh, that'll do. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that, Gilshire. Yeah, it's very Fable.
So with that, you actually did a lot of interviews during that event, and I thought that was pretty awesome because you always have like a very energetic presence, and I thought that was very cool to see you do something like that, and you were able to talk to people in the industry and just have a blast doing it.
And this is the thank you. I really appreciate it, and thank you for watching more than anything, because there was a lot of stuff to pick through there. I think this is the benefit of having come up through development, having come up through, you know, initially at EA, having to learn how to communicate with developers regarding testing online games, and then being in all of those meetings from Codemasters onwards. My job was to be in those meetings and understand the process. So when you get to a point where you're sitting in front of one of the Frostbite devs, I can hold my own. I can do it. I can have a chat. I understand, you know, all of the different kind of elements that we're dealing with. But the benefit that I have is that my role is to represent the audience. So I don't have to know everything. So I can ask stupid questions and I can make people laugh with my stupid questions. I can talk too much sometimes. But I have the kind of base knowledge to be able to hold those conversations. And yeah, it's done some good work. It's really done some good kind of it's given me the ability to be in conversations that other community managers and other people that may be in my field might not necessarily, although, you know, it's not like we don't all deal with development. It's just the levels on which you choose to engage with it, I suppose.
And the other thing I wanted to say is that I do agree with you when you said that Xbox has, you know, one of the best ways to communicate with their fans back and forth. And I think that you kind of brought some of that approach with you to Xbox. I think that you kind of helped that community out. And if you look at the way that you used to manage the community versus the way that some studios are doing it now, I would think that I would want to say that you've done it a lot better, and that you should write a book on how to do proper community management, because there are some CMs out there that get really, I mean, they do get frustrated and they let it show in the tweets, and they post like mean GIFs or mean memes, or they say rude things. And that's something, when I go back to remembering how you interacted, you never did that. You always you listened. You always listened to what the problem was, and you try to diffuse the situation. You never, I mean, even if you felt upset, you never showed it. And I think
yeah, and don't get me wrong, there would have been times when I would have felt very upset, because again, as previously discussed, this would have been incredibly an individual that had undiagnosed ADHD, although it wasn't kind of at its serious point, but where you know, at its very base level, ADHD is an inability to control emotion. So sometimes I would read those messages that had come in, you know, the ones saying that they wanted Lionhead to burn down and for everyone to not be able to feed their children or whatever. And it would really hurt. It would really hurt, because those people were my family. You know, I was spending that job was the point. And I'm sure everyone who stumbles into a career as opposed to plans a career has this kind of moment where that was the point where I realized that I'd stopped hanging out with my friends, and that I was only working, only spending time with work friends, only playing games with work friends, only being in the beta with, you know, whatever it may be. So those people were my family, you know, I loved them. And not only that, they'd given me a chance. They'd given me a chance to not only step out of the role that I was doing that I couldn't stand, and that being in a studio was the only thing that was keeping me, you know, kind of getting out of bed every morning was just everyone else's exciting jobs that I got to witness. They not only pulled me out of that, but they said, hey, we've made this thing that's brand new and hardly anyone's going to know, you know, no one knows about it, and we don't know how it's going to be received. And we want you to tell people about it, you know, so getting those messages sometimes was heartbreaking. But yeah, it's a tough thing, because it's not a nice job a lot of the time. You know, it takes a special kind of person. And I think there is still a real belief, although it is very much dying out, but there is somewhat of a belief that, oh, it's just being on Facebook. Oh, it's just being on Twitter. Oh, I've got a Twitter account. I could do that. You know, there's still that element when it comes to what we're kind of faced with externally as community managers, whether that's in the company in some instances, whether that's within the community, we'll be faced with that kind of attitude. And then alongside that, if you're thinking, hey, I thought this was a fun job, like everyone said this was really good fun, like I don't understand, I thought I got to work with video games and talk to people about fun stuff, you know, it can be quite a desolate place to be a CM. You know, it's the internet, as we all know, can be incredibly cruel, but it can be even more cruel when it believes that something that it loves is being ruined. And that's you know, the CM in the firing line, taking that emotion that someone who you can never understand how someone else feels about something that you've made, and then you can never understand their comprehension of the thing that you've decided that you're going to do, that you've announced, that you haven't actually shown them yet. So you've got the dev and the person with the belief and the comprehension. In the middle of that, you've got some poor community manager going, hang on. So let me just, it's a scary place to be sometimes. So yeah, I guess some CMs might have bad days. We all have bad days. On those days, I try to step away from Twitter.
I wanted to add into that too, is that we recently interviewed, I don't know if you know him, you might know him, Chance Glasgow.
I don't, but what a name. Good Lord.
It is, yes. He's one of the co-founders of Infinity Ward and Call of Duty, one of the 13 original.
Nice.
And he told us that, behind the scenes in the industry, which you probably know, is that everybody's pretty much like friendly to each other. And he's like, we had Battlefield fans yelling at us because we made Call of Duty and did this in Call of Duty, and then Call of Duty fans attacking Battlefield fans. And he's like, and we sat there with the Battlefield devs drinking beer and eating pizza, like, after an event. He's like, we're all friends. We don't understand why our fans do these crazy things.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
I think, like, from your perception of community management, you probably seen a lot of that same thing, and that it's just insane.
Yeah.
So
I am someone that, as far as Phil, like the way that Phil Spencer handles things, as far as the console war and all that kind of stuff, which this fits within, there's no room for it. There is space for everyone. This is no longer a tiny little niche industry. It's huge. You can have everything you want and more, but you don't need to shit on other people's stuff. You just don't. Just go and find something that you love instead. Wouldn't that be nice? If every time we went, hey, I'm going to tell this person to fuck off, I went, oh, actually, I might just go to Steam and get a new game. Like, imagine that. Oh.
Yeah, play something you like or talk about something you like instead of something that you don't like at the moment. That's a better... Look at things positively instead of negatively. And if you have criticism, do it in a positive way, not in a negative way. There's tons of things you can criticize, but if you do it the right way, people listen. You do it the wrong way, you build up a hate train, and that's no good.
And that is why I believe that communication is the most important thing when it comes to developers and audiences, and just making sure that, there shouldn't be this belief that developers are rock stars. There shouldn't be this belief that the community are going to rip you to pieces. We're all just people. We could all go down the pub and have a beer. And what you're saying, that interaction is what happens at the Guildford pub nights. You walk in and there's the guys from Hello Games. Oh, hey, there's EA. Oh, look, Media Molecules over there. Oh, yes. So, it's just, it never ends. It never ends. It's constant. And everyone knows everyone, because it's not just that we all work in the same town. We've all worked together. The industry is small enough, that was small enough when we all started, that we all intertwined for a while before going out and doing our bigger things. And it's still happening. So yeah, it's, I think we all just need to be talking more. And with fans as well. That's why I love E3, because you can get the group of Battlefield fans who just happen to walk past Phil Spencer and then will come in and have a beer with us. It's nice. It's cool.
Yeah, that is awesome for sure. So one thing I did want to ask you that I never asked you before, actually, is, so I've seen images floating around of, and it's probably from Fable, and I probably missed it somewhere in Fable, or it's a loading screen, but it says the Albion Girl, and she's carrying someone. So is that like, is that like a throwback to you, or is that?
So that's where my name came from. So Fable 3 had pub posters, and the Albion Girl was one of those posters. Now, am I going to be able to find it? Yeah,
the Albion Girl always gets her way.
Bam.
And there's a lot of I just saw the picture, like
that is it. I'm trying to find a good version. There we go. View file. I'll send it in the chat. Yeah, so this was just one of the it was one of the adverts used alongside kind of pub signs and all that kind of stuff. So that's the original one. And I had a Twitter account, but when I joined the Lionhead community team, I was like, I want to start a new one. I want to have a fresh one that I can use just for this. And my original one has become my podcast. So yeah, I was like, what can I use? And the Albion Girl was perfect, because it doesn't directly reference Lionhead and Fable, so I could step away and keep it, whereas all of my other friends had to change. They were like LH something, LH name, and they all had to change their handles, but I got to keep mine.
I
Um,
wasn't.
yeah.
I wasn't sure if that was like an Easter egg to you that a developer.
I wish it was that way around. It was long before my time. So Fable, it was Fable 2. It was Fable 3. So I joined just before Fable: The Journey was launched. So I joined in 2012. So I just missed all of the kind of seminal stuff that they created, but still got to work with those people, still got to engage with all those artists and hear their stories and walk the hallowed halls and all of that stuff. So yeah, it feeds in.
I think that's the first time that I saw you is when you had on in that interview those fox pants. I still remember that. Because I've never seen anyone else wear like animal pants like that.
Oh my god, that was the game special effect charity thing with Graham, right? Was it that?
Yes, I think that's what it was. Yes,
dude, right. So this is how, like, I can give you the background on that now, because it wouldn't have made any sense to you at that point. So Lionhead had literally just closed. We're talking like a few months out from Lionhead closing, and no, Lionhead still existed. When I agreed to do it, and in the interim, Lionhead, I believe, I feel like we were either on the way out or something, but I shaved all of my hair off, and just one day woken up and decided, fuck it, just cut the lot off and shave one side, and then realized, oh no, I've got to be on that stream. Like, I was having all these palpitations about what was going on at Lionhead and feeling quite uncomfortable. Then remembered I had this stream coming up where I had to not only sit next to Graham Boys, but play that game that I'm awful at with the cars and the football. What is it called? What is the game where you're the Rocket League? Rocket League.
Yes.
I'd played it once or twice before and always ended up just making an absolute fool of myself. And then I had to stream it live with Graham Boyd, with the AC Bongos. And I believe at one point he actually turned to me and said, "Are you really this bad?" Like, live. I was like,
wow.
I hate this game. Yeah, if you give me Pokemon, man, you would have been wowed. But yeah, it was awful. It was awful. So the whole thing, like, no hair, crazy trousers, thinking, oh God, why have I put these crazy trousers on? And it's all cold. My head's all cold. And now there's this actual famous person who's asking me why I'm so rubbish at playing video games. Awful. But we raised some money, so that's, it was for charity. That's the main thing.
That's okay. If you want to know the truth, I was in a party with Phil Spencer one time, and we played Rocket League, and I took a picture of the scoreboard. I beat him.
Good job.
So
hey, I might just
it's out there.
I may defer to you next time someone needs me to play. I'll be like, I'll be playing, and I'll do the pretending, and you'll do the playing. Mm-hmm. Everyone will be all over it. Yeah.
Phil never played Rocket League with me again.
I love it. Make him do it again. Stream it.
We have another question in chat from Graphic God.
Sure.
Do members of the development community resent some of the decisions made by big gaming companies, like closing studios, canceling games, or do you realize that business is business?
I would say it's both. You can't help but feel sad when the place that you quite literally call home and go to every single day, even on weekends, and stay till 10 o'clock at night. Don't do it. It's unhealthy. It's very unhealthy. Yeah, I mean, of course there is. I mean, speaking on a personal level, which I can do nothing more than speak on a personal level. Yeah, heartbroken, and that's coming from someone that had a good, a good grounding, a good kind of stance at Xbox. I knew the management teams, and I'd be invited to go and do these. I did the on-stage thing at E3, and I did a Windows Devices online event with Phil. And I'd have rapport with these people. I'd speak to these guys, and I'm very fond of all of the management team that I dealt with at Xbox in the US and in the UK. You can't help but feel like, oh, why we were so close. There was so much work done, and we were really ready to do something, to show something that was going to make a bit of a difference. But I remember being in the pub, as soon as we got that news, we all went to the pub that evening, in the case of Lionhead. And I remember saying to some people, it's business. At the end of the day, it's business. Even then, even that early on, even though you're going through the grief and the sadness and the rage and all of those other things, and drinking considerably because your heart feels empty, even then you can say, well, look, ultimately, here's a deficit, and here's where the game was supposed to be, and something's got to give. So it's hard to feel positive, but you get that, you get that hindsight, you get that distance and space, and some amount of, okay, I get it. I see why that happened. I see that we're all settled and happy, and it will always hit some people worse than others. And I think I was one of the worst. I mean, I literally fell into depression after Lionhead fell down. It was an awful year or so for me. I was in a very, very dark place because I'd lost my home. It was the only place that I'd ever felt like I'd had a career. Like I said, people had given me something. They'd given me a chance. They'd given me their precious little baby that I was allowed to go out and talk about. So yeah, it ruined me. But dusted myself off about 2-3 years later and carried on.
I mean, from where you've been to where you are now, I think is an exciting journey, and it brought you to what you do now, and you run your own company essentially, interacting with different studios and different people. So can you tell us what you do exactly, and
Sure.
the companies that you help out?
I mean, it's such, again, I'm going to try not to talk too much because I am the absolute worst for talking.
You can talk,
but
don't worry.
It's whether the dog will let me. That's the real question. He seems to have stopped trying to dig his way out the kitchen there, so I think we're okay. So for Liquid Crimson, are the video company that I worked with at Lionhead. So all of the cool dev diaries that we did, all of the E3 show floor stuff where we're talking to gamers and interview members of the team. Liquid Crimson were my video team. They would come to Lionhead and film all of those videos for me. They would come to LA and film videos for when we were at events and stuff. But they also taught me how to engage with people on camera. They taught me how to have a presence. I mean, I already was in bands and stuff and used to being on stage, but they taught me how to properly address the camera and properly speak to people in a way that they'll understand and use the right language and all of this kind of stuff. Even down to some kind of elocution lessons, I believe. I did have one day off. So they do that kind of stuff. They do dev diaries. They also do trailers. They did a lot of the Lionhead trailers. So even back in those days, they would be with me. We'd be capturing footage from gameplay for them to take away and make into all of those E3 trailers. So they've been heavily involved in everything. And their background is that they were both Jason and Linda, who are the main kind of pillars of Liquid Crimson, were at EA. So they left EA some time ago. They founded Liquid Crimson. I've come on board. They are currently production house doing dev diaries and awesome trailers and also live events. They don't just work with games. They work with Circus of Horrors and various McLaren stuff and all kinds of, anything you can think of. Space Rocks, which is Brian May and all of those cool European Space Agency scientists. I guess they're scientists. So they've brought me on board. They've got all of this covered. They've got production covered as far as video goes. And because they are starting to, the world is changing. We're all working from home. Communication is absolutely more key and more important than ever before. They brought me on as their head of comms. Initially, just as a part-time basis, and I was kind of building up my client base in the meantime. So what I managed to do was go to all of essentially a lot of my good friends that are developers that either had community managers that weren't quite in step with the game, I suppose would be the best way to kind of describe it, where I just felt like something, they'd either lost a community manager or were looking for a community manager, and I'd recognized that there was somewhere that I think I could help. So I have been able to work with lots of studios that ordinarily I might not be able to because they don't need a community manager full time. So I work with Magic Notion, who make all of the Kitty Powers games, which are absolutely fantastic, and you guys should check them out. We believe Kitty to be the world's only drag queen developer, but we're not 100% sure. We still need to double check. But Rich, he develops the game, and Kitty is the star of the game, and they are the same person, and it's wonderful. And then I've got Salix Games, who last year launched the kind of bolt-on to Delac and Faye, which was the director's cut, which was fantastic. So Dance of Death, Delac and Faye is their game, which is amazing. There's also Glowmade, who I've mentioned, who have gone from strength to strength and are now doing all kinds of new exciting things that I'm working with there. But then in addition to that, there's Liquid Crimson itself deals with so many different things that, some days I could be writing scripts for trailers, and some days I could be doing the VO for scripts for trailers, which I wouldn't be expecting to do it. And other days I might be, speaking to influencers about the Guildford Games Festival, or I might be, I don't know, working with any number of the studios in Guildford and beyond that come to Liquid Crimson for all kinds of reasons. And I'm very lucky to be able to kind of put my input in where it's valuable. But of course, I can't say too much about what we're doing because it's all super secret. But if you have a look at their social media, you can get an idea of the studios that they've worked with, because it's just mega. The list just goes on and on and on. And like with the Guildford Games Festival, I was interviewing comedians. I was interviewing astronauts. I was interviewing the guy that used to be the editor of Kerrang and Metal Hammer, which won't mean anything to you guys, but when I was a kid, Kerrang and Metal Hammer were my staples, the two magazines that I read all of the time. And then, who knows how long, 20 years later, I'm interviewing the guy that used to edit the mags that I read when I was a teenager. It's just like, no, this is crazy. They have connections everywhere. So I get to really kind of pull on all these threads and say, hey, person at ESA, you're really interested in, education, and hey, developer in Guildford, you're really interested in, making an educational game. Let's make something happen. I can find those things and kind of pull them all together, and make things happen that might not ordinarily happen. I have a little black book that is the size of my office. It's great.
That is pretty cool. That is awesome.
Yeah, it's good fun. The scope is endless, and we're doing some really exciting stuff at the moment with some fantastic creators that I am not allowed to talk about, but I will. And as soon as it happens, I'll send you guys a link so you can see what it is, because it really is very, very exciting. Very exciting indeed. I'm pleased.
I am excited. If you're excited, I'm excited, because I know it has to be good. Because you're very passionate, so I know it's got to be good.
And this is the thing, with Liquid Crimson, they know exactly what I'm good at. They know what I'm good at. They know what my talents are, and they will say, hey, you may not have been interviewing anyone on camera for, Lord knows how long, never mind the fact that you've been in lockdown for 6 months. Get out there and interview the head of EA. Get out there and interview people from, they kind of create these environments where I have to throw myself out of my comfort zone. And I have to put myself back in the Lauran Carter that works in studios and deals with people every day, who is a very different person to the one that sits in her office in lockdown. But, you have to, they help me pull myself back up to that point.
I was thinking about lockdown itself. Like, how is it to start working from home as a community manager? How different was it from?
Well, I was quite lucky in that I'd already transitioned to working from home the year before, and was in a situation where at that point I was living with my folks while saving up my deposit for my flat, which I moved into a little while later. So when lockdown actually happened, not only was I used to being at home, but I was in a new space that I was getting to decorate and own and all of that kind of stuff. So it really kind of offset that aspect. But as far as the community aspect, not all that different, like there's not a huge difference in doing it in this situation. I mean, we miss out on actual events. We miss out on going to shows and having the community come and talk to the devs in those, panels or on a show floor or whatever that may be. But as far as collaborating with the developers, who for the most part, as I said, are people that I've known and worked with and socialized with in some cases, that's just the usual methods of chat that we'd probably have set up anyways. There would be a Discord, there would be a Guildford Games conversation happening somewhere, so we're always in the loop anyways, and it's just keeping the kind of schedule on top of that and finding ways to share things with their community that doesn't. I think, to be honest, the most difficult thing at the moment is oversaturation, because everyone's at home. So all the studios, everyone, all companies across the world, not just in games, are getting out as much content, more stuff. Get it out now, do it now. And whether that's just stuff to engage with on social media, or whether that's, shows or more kind of long form content. I think we're getting to a point where, with my developers at least, we say something when there's something really important or relevant to say, because we don't want to just keep shouting. There's a lot of people shouting, and we need to make space for, make sure there's room for everyone. So when there's something really important to say, people are going to hear about it. Also, if it's not a cat, if it's not a dog, it's a cat. I'm really sorry. This is my life. This is my life. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so it's not been too difficult. It's launches. I say launches are the saddest thing. You want to be around a team when you're launching a game. That's been the most kind of hardest bit for me. But yeah, with communities, it's not so bad.
Your cat is awesome.
Because I work from home and pretty much live alone. If I'm talking, she thinks I'm talking to her. Because who else am I going to be talking to, right? She doesn't know that you guys are there. She doesn't understand. So as soon as I start speaking on any phone call, any meeting, any time, she will appear. And here she is. This is Dahlia. Yes. Yeah. So no, it's been fun. I mean, lockdown's been challenging. It's been awful. It's had its really, really dark low points. Don't get me wrong. But actually having the time to start my own business and have the space to not worry about socializing, not feel guilty about being too tired to make it to whatever event it may be, has been a bit of a godsend. It's an awful thing to say, isn't it? It's awful. The rest of it's been horrible. I have to stress, absolutely horrible. Constantly feeling bad, constantly watching figures ticking up. I'm so tired, guys. I'm so sorry. Yeah, it's had its real low points, but actually being able to take a step back from society has been quite an interesting juxtaposition, I suppose. Come on now, that's enough. Relentless, absolutely relentless. This is what my working day is like. It's just an extension. She's coming back.
So I have another question. Where do you see the evolution of what you do and how you connect to all of the gamers going out there? What is the next steps or the next evolution, the next jump, I would say?
I imagine once we're out of lockdown, there will probably be some kind of boost in small gatherings with developers, whether that's with most kind of creators, with most kind of big brands. I imagine celebrities and kind of influencers. I imagine we'll start to do, I hope at least, that we'll start to do kind of smaller interactions where you actually get something valuable out of those meetings. And whether it's, doing meet and greets on a slightly bigger level once we get back into doing events, because there's so much that people have missed out on from just having real life conversations. And we need to be doing that. So I, for one, will be focusing on kind of small level panels, whether that's getting 20 people in a room when we're allowed to do stuff like that. But I imagine for some time before that, it's going to be much, much smaller. But actually getting to a point where we can have useful conversation, and frankly, getting people used to doing that again is going to take some time as well. But yeah, I think we're heading into a place where I imagine Twitter, Facebook, we know is dying off. We know that it's on the way out anyway. I want developers to be streaming more. I want developers to be conversing, not necessarily streaming games, not doing anything impressive, just having a chat. Just show up and talk to a community and have a one-on-one and give them 5 minutes of your time to understand what you do and your motivations, and to spark their motivation to want to do the same thing. And similarly, I should think Discord is going to start heading that way. I should think we're going to start seeing much more smaller closed group Discords with developers potentially kind of engaging with their community in almost in feedback groups. Would be another great way to do things. They're the things that I would like to be focusing on heading forward. But who knows what all my colleagues are up to, because I haven't seen them. I couldn't tell you all of my peers in the games industry as far as what I do for a living. Who knows? We've not had any chance to brainstorm it.
Okay. That Mama Rux has a question for you as well, and actually a really great one. As someone who really wants to become a community manager, what is the best way for me to get into it?
Okay, it's, to be honest, maybe it's harder than it actually sounds. Just start a community, find a community. It doesn't matter if that community is your mum's sewing page, which I look after my mum's sewing page, by the way, I'm very proud of it. Or it's your mate's band, or a friend of yours is an artist, or whatever it may be. So a friend of yours rescues pigeons on the weekend and they've rescued 17 of them. It's becoming a bit of a thing. Start community managing it. Start talking about it, find a way to harness that information, because we live in a world where those huge communities are great when you want to see a collection of what everyone else is thinking and feeling. But when you actually want interaction and when you want to find something super niche, there's room for that too, right? So you can make something that's really small and niche, and that will actually be valuable even if it is only 40 people that, you know, however small the amount is, make it a valuable, engaging space and document it. Start working out, you know, pay attention to what your peers in the field are doing, what hashtags they're using, which, you know, days and times of the week seem most beneficial to them. Engage with their audience, talk to people that are engaging with them. Don't steal their conversation, but join in, add something valuable. Document your follow account, document analytics in the back end of both Facebook or Twitter, although I wonder if Facebook's taken some of theirs away, that can give you an idea of the best time to post, who your audience is, you know, how engaging various things are. Pay attention to all of that and just build. And once you've gotten to a point where you've documented, you can then go to someone and say, hey, I might not have been a community manager in games, but here's something that I've looked after, and here's how much I love games. And you use your passion and your, you know, you audibly go over how much you love video games. But the community itself doesn't have to be games. It can be anything. It's just learning how to, I guess, yeah, like build something, curate something, and start a little spark that keeps that fire going, even if you're not there all of the time.
I think so. When I look at her question, and this is true, she's kind of like, she is a panel member of Four Guys with Quarters, as well as on other panels, and does other things. But she's built a community on Twitter for herself, like her own following, and it's grown. I think what she wants to do is
tagged. Yeah. I know who you're talking about.
Yes.
I think. Sorry, go on. Yeah, go on.
So I think she wants to eventually get in the ground floor in community management, like in the games industry, or an industry that she's passionate about. And
sure.
I think she wants, or maybe I'm wrong, but looking for tips on how to find a company that might be looking for a CM.
I mean, that's just a case of trawling the internet. That's you know, looking for, using hashtags. Absolutely, start searching for various hashtags to do with the roles that you want to be doing. Hiring, all of that kind of stuff, hashtag job, whatever else people are using these days. I'm sure there's loads. Have a look into what they are and check those regularly. Check them every day. Check LinkedIn. Involve yourself. You know, like I said with the creators that I worked with at 2 Point, I will actively seek out their opinion and their time if they can spare it and if I can afford it, because I know that they're the experts in what they do. So it's about finding people that are so engaged it doesn't matter what they're doing. So the communities that you have already, if you're building up a community for yourself, that's a perfectly good thing to be taking to a company and saying, hey, look what I did. And the rest of it is really just saying hi to people on Facebook and Twitter. That's it's kind of a double pronged. If you can have the full package when you come to engage with the actual job, if you've already been speaking to the studios that you like speaking to, then when these opportunities arise, the studios will remember you. And if your CVs come in at the same time, they'll go, hang on a sec, isn't that the chick from Twitter that we've been speaking to about blah 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 blah, whatever it may be. You know, you've got to have yourself in the conversation to give a better chance of being seen by the studio. And that's certainly how I work. You know, as I said, I now look for people in the work that I do now. I can engage people that have just been shining kind of pillars of the community, whichever community I've been managing. I can now go back to them and say, hey, you're great at doing this thing and I need someone to do that. So you remember those people that really kind of stand out. So yeah, just be engaging, have interesting conversations, have valuable interactions where you're actually giving or taking information that's, you know, super useful to your cause. Be humble, and yeah, kind of sidle your way into those chats. Just start talking to people. It's what I do. It works. Honestly, just have a chat. I'll do it for you if you want. I'll do the intros on Twitter.
That's awesome.
We should have a chat. We'll have a chat. I will seek her out on Twitter and we'll have a little convo and I'll see if I can help.
That is awesome. I'm so happy. So there you go, that mama rocks. There you go. And speaking of which, Lauran, I don't know, but I think you have a really big community because for some reason we have just gotten like 40 subs on the stream. Yes, and we're all hearing Flamish's sounds when he made race sounds. It's so repetitive now, but it's going crazy.
What?
Amazing.
Are you watching the Twitch? Are you watching the YouTube stream? can see it. You can see it. It's going crazy. Derek, they said it's fun and spam.
God, I hope it's not because I'm an absolute twat.
No, people.
Fingers crossed.
You're awesome. You must be famous.
Oh
I
gosh,
think
no.
they all just like to see me. Woo!
Who doesn't? Who doesn't? Hang on, let me get it up. There we go. Wow. Well, that's good to know, isn't it? It's always good to know that people are still interested in hearing the things I have to say. Because it feels so old hat these days.
Well, it's probably because you've talked to so many people throughout your
It's been a while,
career.
though. I mean, honestly, all the last stuff recently, everything that I've been doing has been interviewing other people, where my poor video team just have to edit out hours and hours and hours and hours of me talking because I'm not the one that's supposed to be talking. So yeah, it's nice to actually just have a chat about what I do. It's nice. It's nice. I enjoy it. Yeah, good times. That said, though, that dog, he's going to need a wee break pretty soon, so I may have to dash. But is there another question?
Flamish,
One more.
PK, any last questions?
I'm just a little bit enamored by the stream at the moment.
Yes, I need to change that soundbite for sure.
We're gonna do something about it, Klaus.
This is great. Oh, guys, I'm so pleased. I'm so pleased. I'm just looking now.
I just want to thank you for coming on and sharing all your stories and familiarizing a lot of us about things that go on behind the doors, being so cheerful about even some of the struggles, and showing us what's the good things that's coming down the pipe.
Thank you so much. That's so sweet, and I've been absolutely honored. It's been great. But yeah, it's it's a job. A job is a job, right? Everyone, no matter how much you love your job, there are still going to be days when you're like, oh God, why is this happening? So yeah, we all have bad times. We all have sad moments. We all lose studios. Creative industries work this way. It's just the way it goes. It's like assigning yourself to a band for the rest of your life. It's very unlikely that you'll be able to work with the very same band for the rest of your life. That band's probably going to disappear. Maybe one member will go on to do something else and you can go and work with them. That's kind of what we're dealing with. So there are troughs, but there are peaks. And you just keep chasing the peaks.
And it has something I want to ask you, but I think I forgot.
That was probably my fault.
It's not your fault. No, it might be. Oh man, I did forget. I did forget. My beard's got longer though.
It really has. I was going to say that the cutting off is quite deceiving. There's a lot of beard carrying on down there.
Yeah.
Very cool. I'm liking the highlights that are coming in too. That's rad.
Thanks.
That's why I have to dye mine ginger now, because my dark hair comes through grey. But hey, mid-30s, what are you going to do? Yeah. Such is life. And thank you also, Clowns, for that incredibly youthful photo that you used that is circa 2016 for the interview. So yeah, I look way young in that thumbnail. Makes me so happy.
You still look young. You still look young.
Yeah, there's a lot of light in this room, guys. It's all facing at my face.
You're still very young.
You're too kind. You're too kind. Well, I mean, I'm on Twitter. If anyone who's watching has any particular questions that I can help with, at the Albion Girl, as previously mentioned, is my handle. And I have a podcast, Super Cool Cast, where you can hear me interviewing all kinds of amazing games industry legends. I will just find that for you real quick. So prepared. But it has been on hiatus because I am so busy. I'm going to pop it in the chat from Liquid Crimson, but it is me. And the other thing I would do is share all of those amazing interviews that I hosted. The people were amazing. I was just the host. But let me find those as well. If anyone wants to continue, they can.
Dragonheart Yobi says, "You look beautiful, lady. Stop it." And
that is so sweet.
Graphic God says, "Highlights equals wisdom."
I thought I was going to say wizard. I would have gone with either. Highlights equal wizard. Yes, they do.
And Michael Monkey Punch says, "Hey Lauren, how are you?"
Hi, Michael. I'm good. I'm tired. These headphones pinch my head a little bit, which starts to give me a little bit of a headache. But other than that, I'm fine. I'm great. I'm doing just great. Thank you. How are you? I'm just trying to find this playlist.
A new tagline for your Guildford Dev Nights. And it's
nice.
like it might be like a Fable kind of tagline.
I'm in for that.
So, Gilshire, where devs are legends.
Yes. Oh my god, I love it.
I love it. That's a good one.
And if you ever come up with T-shirts to that, I will buy one because it's.
Well,
it
cool. really reminds me of that line that huge blog that I wrote about Lionhead going down, and I ended with, "Heroes get remembered, but legends never die."
Yep.
It's like, yeah, that's us. We're the hero and the legend.
And HTK has a question for you. All these questions are coming up now.
That's okay. I've got 5. You're good. You're good.
Past COVID, will you go back singing with the GNR cover band?
I hope so. I really, really hope so. I miss it terribly. I've been speaking to them. The venue that we play at very regularly, that is run by a friend of ours, has obviously suffered terribly in COVID times. So we were, before the third lockdown came in, I don't even remember which one it is now. We were hoping to do an open air kind of autumn time show and fucking bash out some GNR and stomp around in some plaid. But yeah, it didn't happen. So fingers crossed. After COVID, once we're allowed out again, first thing on my list is live music, and not going to gigs, being on stage. I miss it so much. I miss singing. I miss, just getting to really let it all out at the end of the week. It helps, getting to be Axl Rose for a couple of hours does wonders for your stress levels.
Yes,
it really does.
And Michael Monkey Punch, I agree with you, and I think that's why Lauren has such a great stage presence, is because she does have a lovely voice. That's what he said.
It's too kind. Thank you so much. That's very, very sweet. I'm amazed that it's still holding up, to be honest. I have hosted so many meetings today and been on so many calls. It is definitely starting to wobble. But I've just shared the playlist for the Guildford Games Festival as well. So there's 9 hours of footage with various Guildford developers that we shot for that event. And it's amazing. The guys involved are just so talented, so cool. So yeah, go check it out. And thank you for listening to me for all of this time. And my dog.
And the cat. Don't forget the cat.
And the cat. Yeah, she's just nipped out the window, and I'm on the first floor, so I'm not sure what's going on there. She's probably fine.
Before we get out of here and do the outros, I was going to ask if your company ever does anything with candy companies. Let Flamish know he loves candy. He bought like 70 pounds worth of candy.
Oh, hold on. I'll show my box. I'll show my box. No, so I got my little box of candy in the corner.
Oh, that's amazing.
Is full.
Oh, these peach rings.
Yeah,
oh, dude, I love those guys.
I got all kinds of stuff. I got the lips, I got the strawberries,
but
I also got the full box over there, full of bags of candy.
I thought they were Dreamcast controllers. I was like, dude, that's a lot. Why do you need that many? Wait a minute.
I love candy.
It's very cool. Very cool. I mean, we haven't as yet dealt with any sweet companies. I don't know what you mean, candy, sweeties.
Yeah, sweet.
We've not as yet, but if we do, I'll be sure to siphon off I don't know, a crate or two. What kind of levels are you working on here? Looks like you've got a bit of an addiction going on. More like a couple of bags, but I'll do what I can.
No, of some ideas maybe from candy. I have lots.
Oh, that could be interesting. I mean, unless we're talking about like Zool, because I'm not up for playing another game where Chubba Chubs just fly at me out of various bits and pieces. But yeah, okay, cool. We can talk about it.
So Lauren, where can people find you on the internet?
Yes, I've shared a couple of things in the chat as far as the podcast. So Super Cool Cast is my podcast. You can find that on. I mean, it is on Twitter, but I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. I'm a one-woman show who's working probably a bit too hard. So my own social channels have taken that hit. The podcast being one. The podcast is on hiatus, but there's loads of stuff in there. At the Albion Girl on Twitter. I think I'm the Albion Girl on Instagram, which is really my most used social media, if anyone wants to find me there. And I'm not yet at the point of streaming myself, but always happy to go and feature on other people's streams if anyone ever wants me to I don't know, whatever. But if I ever do get to streaming, I'll let you guys know. I'm not sure if the world needs it just yet. Yes, the Albion Girl on Instagram too.
Awesome.
And Liquid Crimson on, I've shared it in the chat, Liquid Crimson on YouTube is where you'll find all of those awesome interviews and all of the stuff that we do. We shout about from our Twitter page. And I'm also in the process of plotting out a newsletter that everyone should sign up for. And I'll share the details for that when I've got it. Always getting ahead of myself. Thank you.
And Flemish, real quick before we get out of here, do you want to tell people where they can find you on Sundays?
Yeah, of course. On Sundays on the Flemish Experience, where we talk about random stuff all the time.
Nice.
And that's at what was it, 2 p.m. EST
Eastern?
or or 7 p.m. UK time. So, and then of course on this channel with clowns, reviews, interviews, all kinds of stuff for GQ TV. So
it's a good mashup. I'm a fan, big fan. Enjoyed it very much.
Thank you. And of course, everybody in the chat, you know where you can find me, 4Guys Recorders on YouTube. And I want to thank Lauren for coming out. Absolutely a fabulous interview, as in the UK they would say brilliant interview.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. It was marvelous, stunning, superb. I loved it.
I love it.
And one thing before I do cut off the stream, is beans and toast really as popular as some UK
beans
people
and toast is a staple in this household, and I will not hear a negative word about it. I have a stash of beans on toast because I am a lazy individual who, when I'm on my own and my boyfriend's not here to help me cook, I will just cook the beans and the toast. It's fantastic. You're missing out. Honestly, it's fantastic. It's so good. It's like soup and carbs.
I did try it once with Dr. Pepper beans. We have Dr.
So
Pepper.
is it with?
No.
Yes.
No, don't do that. Well, I suppose they'd be kind of barbecue-y though, right?
They were a little they were like soda flavored because they're made.
Oh
by
no. I thought it might give more of a smoky kind of Dr. Pepper aspect. No. Throw that in the bin. Drop that into the sun. Never have that again. That's bad. That's wrong. I can give you a new challenge if you want. I mean, you need to get just standard Heinz beans on toast is the first thing you need to do. And what you need is a nice fluffy white loaf, not the thin cut slice, a nice fluffy loaf, and you 2 slices of that, sure, blah blah blah. Lots of butter, beans on toast beans on top once the toast is toasted, with lots of butter, and then cheese. Always cheese, melty cheese, but you've got to have cheddar in there as well. So you need something that's going to melt, but also the cheddar for the nice kind of strong flavor. The thing that you can try is my brother's favorite weird cuisine that he I think he coined when he was at university living in a student house. He would cook pasta in tomato soup, and that was his dinner. That's a weird one.
That's
I
genius.
I have a
genius. Your brother is a genius.
I do a sort of that thing, like when I put vermicelli, like the very small pasta, in chicken soup.
Oh, that's quite good. Yeah, that works. But he puts loads in to try and make it more like a sauce. It's crazy. Yeah. I think it's crazy. And then cheese, obviously. But a good desperation meal. If you need desperation meals, I've got loads.
I'm gonna try.
You don't want to cook.
I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try your brother's recipe too. Yes, I will.
Do it. That will make him very happy. He's due to have a child very soon, but that will be the thing that he'll be most pleased about, I imagine, that someone has tried his weird university recipe.
Klaus,
well,
we're gonna do it together.
Congrats.
I'll pass it on. Yeah, dude, you should live stream it. I'll tell him.
We're gonna do it together. I will be there with him. The same thing. We'll do it together.
Perfect.
I love food. I love candy. I love everything doing that.
Weird
except
stuff.
sriracha sauce. No hot sauce anymore.
Hot sauce on mac and cheese is life.
Yeah, Clowns made me eat sriracha sauce on candy.
Man,
No.
a donation stream.
No, that's no good. That's well, I've eaten crickets. I've eaten chilied crickets for donation
Ooh.
streams. It was horrible. I could taste their legs for days. I kept finding them. It was awful.
Oh,
It's
man.
awful. And on that note,
Well, everyone,
I'll leave
thank
you guys
for
with that.
everyone coming out. Appreciate it. And see you guys next time.
Thanks for having
Bye.
me, dudes.